Hello and welcome to episode 286 of the Should I Play This Game podcast. It's been a while, Steve, hasn't it, since we've done one of these?
Oh my god.
It's
Yes.
basically been a month since we've done one of these.
I was going to say about 6 weeks.
No, last one was on the 7th of August, so it's been pretty on a
Oh,
month.
fuck. Alright, that's way less time than I thought. I thought it was like 6 weeks.
Well, it felt like 6 weeks, that's for sure. Now, we managed to do one of them during my trips to Melbourne that I was doing. I did 3-week-long work trips to Melbourne in the space of 7 weeks.
And I got sick.
And you got sick, and it sounds like you're still up. So we maybe got sick
so-
again. I'm not sure.
Oh my god. Okay, so, real quick. My health run this year has been fucking shocking. So, excuse me.
Right on cue.
Yep, I know, right? So the last episode proper the last scheduled podcast we were going to do, I was out. I think I was out for the video one too because I ended up getting a chest infection that either moved or also got ear infections.
Mm-hmm.
Like dueling ear infections, which was fucking fun. And there was about a 5-day period where I couldn't even sit in front of the computer. I literally played one game in that period, and it was a short one, but you wouldn't be able to tell that from the fucking list. And then I went back to work after I had basically 2 weeks off work. I went back to work, and then the Thursday of the week I was back at work, which was about 2 weeks ago, cough and that started coming back. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. Worked through it, and then the cough has just come back again today.
Mm-hmm.
At the time of recording this. And I had a CT scan because I was still getting some pain from the operation.
Oh, from the appendix one. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was hanging around. I don't know if it's not hurting so much right now, but I don't know if that's because my brain's distracted by the re-emergence of chest infections or some shit. I don't know.
Or you're just getting used to it or something weird.
Or I'm either way. It's been a
period.
It's been a time.
Yes, I've had ear infections when I was really quite young, and they are not fun.
It was really unpleasant.
Yeah, they are not fun. Yeah, I don't.
Oh, had the Monday off. This is going back some weeks. Went back to work on the Tuesday because I'm like, we'll see how we go. I'm not doing this. Fuck this. Wednesday I had off. I'd already booked it off because I'm like, nope, not happening. And then overnight, the ear infection was coming, and I ended up having like a steaming hot shower at like 2 a.m. Then again at like 5. So I had like multiple nights of like 3 to 4 showers a day, just sitting in the floor of a shower, just fucking raging hot.
Yeah.
And then of course, because I'm a dickhead, I didn't really go to the doctors for at least a good week. And then it's like, hey, you got infections. Here, have some antibiotics. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. If I'd have done this like maybe 4 or 5 days ago. So, yeah. Going great guns.
But here, having said all that, you have your list of games is quite long. It is. I think it's,
18.
18 games. Mine's at 3, but I've played a lot of one game, so that's not a big surprise per se. But let's go on to now let's see if I can get this to work. We want that bit, and I think we want that. That's not really worked, but that'll do.
There we go. Close enough.
Got there in the end.
Yeah. So the volume is part a result of the amount of time I've had off.
Yes, for sure.
Again.
Yep.
And also, quite a number of the games that I've got here are on the shorter side.
Okay. Yep.
So I was able to get most of them in. Yeah. Then go from there. So first cab off the ranks was a game I talked about in the last episode of the podcast, which was Showgunners. I ended up finishing it.
Right.
And there's free DLC that they actually embed as part of the campaign.
Okay.
You can launch it and play it separately from the game's main menu, but they actually embed it into the campaign as hey, do you want to go up here and possibly get some dope weapons and shit? I'm like, fuck yeah, I do, let's go. The last few missions of that game, or the last few missions of that campaign, on the surface seemed really insurmountable. I'm like, what's up with all these fucking dudes and all these hardcore assholes that don't show up? But you absolutely have all the tools to deal with it without actually losing any of the members of your team, which is really cool. It was a really great version of that sort of XCOM Lite formula, with the additional exploration layer around it. The XCOM parts are stronger than... Oh, what the fuck was that? Mutant Year... the game by the Mutant Year Zero people?
Oh, the recent one?
Yeah.
Miasma Chronicles.
Miasma Chronicles, thank you. The XCOM elements are stronger in Showgunners than they are in Miasma Chronicles, but the exploration part is stronger in Miasma Chronicles and sort of built in a little bit more.
Yeah, well, you got that sort of pre-combat stuff you can do in Miasma.
Yeah.
And also Mutant Zero before that.
Which there's an element to that in this, but I still enjoyed it. And I think the strength of the XCOM layer makes this a better experience overall than Miasma Chronicles. Because there are experiences or combat encounters in Miasma Chronicles where you have to stealth around and boss fools in the head to even make them manageable.
Yeah.
Whereas all of the combat encounters in Showgunners are absolutely winnable without losing anyone or anything like that. So really good. I really enjoyed that. Next cab off the ranks, 9 Years of Shadows. This was really one of the really short games I mentioned. This was about a 5 to 6 hour experience. One of the sort of beautifully animated, really pretty Metroidvanias that have come out this year. Much smaller scale than something like After Image. And because it's such a smaller scale, it's less annoying and aimless to explore the environments. There's a bit of a limit to what you can access, where you can go, and it makes it more appealing. There were a couple of boss fights that were a bit rough, and I was like, oh, god damn it, sometimes the save points were a bit too far apart and you lose a bunch of progress when you died, but it's still probably my favorite of the Metroidvania style so far this year.
Yep.
I've been waiting to get to this one for a long time, and the thing that we're using now to put this together doesn't actually have the remake in it, which is why we got the old school box of 1994.
Okay.
I'm talking a remake of System Shock, which came out earlier this year, courtesy of Night Dive Studios. Now, for some weird reason, the Internet Games Database has the remake, but it's attached to the original.
Oh, like a DLC kind of a thing or something?
Yeah, it's attached as I'll get to it in a bit, but the version of the Quake 2 that I played was another Night Dive remaster or prettying up or whatever that came out this year. I fucking really enjoyed System Shock. That game's about 22 hours, and I powered through most of it in about a 3-ish day span while I was off. It has an incredible style and incredible look, like mixing modern graphics techniques with classic graphical style that gives it a really unique but still cohesive look to it, which I really enjoyed. It was really fun to explore all the maps and just go digging through trying to find shit. The combat was at least serviceable, but I still enjoyed it, which is obviously important in a game like that, and I thought it was quite well written. The end just kind of happens, but you sort of you beat the boss, and then it just kind of goes, okay, yep, done. I'm like, oh man. There is a great scene at the start of the game when you get arrested, and as the cops are busting into your apartment, you push yourself away from your laptop. The cops are looking at you, waiting to put the handcuffs on, and you hold your hands out, and then you just go flip them off, which is pretty great.
I've actually just found the other one, so give me a second.
Oh, did you? There are parts where you have to write shit down to actually remember it in this game.
Yep.
Like puzzle solutions and things like that. I think there are a couple more sections that might have benefited from a little more guidance, as it's very classic in its gameplay direction or your progress direction. Hey! There you go. What the? All right, we'll
Yeah.
have to figure out later what I couldn't find, or
Yeah, I'll figure out that later. Yep.
I think it was a bit finicky trying to find it, perhaps, or maybe I'm just dumb. I don't know. Always very possible. All the information you need for progression through the game's puzzles and everything is actually in audio logs and emails that you find.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the first time those things are useful.
Yeah, pretty much. Because like there's a part where it's like, oh, to get through this section, you need to go through these previous floors, fuck up this spot, and it'll flash up a part of the code that you need to get into this room.
Mm.
If you don't pay attention to that, you don't actually realize that code's actually really important.
Yeah.
And it's randomized.
Oh, God.
So each playthrough the code is going to be different, so you can't just look it up and go, duh, what's the code? I did have to consult the internet a few times because there are some bits and pieces that I missed. But I really gained an appreciation for why System Shock is so important, so highly regarded, and why it is that immersive sim. I would really like to see Night Dive do a remake of System Shock 2 because System Shock 2 is even more highly regarded. And this was fucking incredible. I really enjoyed it. Now, a tonal departure.
Mm.
The most Australian game I've ever played. Repeller Fella. Basically, it promotes itself as being a well-Australian point-and-click adventure game. It's got a pretty interesting story. It's almost like... I don't know if you've read it, but I can't remember the writer's name, but like Tomorrow When the War Began.
Mm-hmm. I think I know that, yeah.
Yeah. That idea of like, oh, we went out bush and then all of a sudden the country got taken over. It's kind of that, but the dude goes down into like an underwater capsule.
Yep.
And time passes. It gets pretty sweary, and there's some C-bombs being dropped because it's Australian as all fuck. I really, really like the art style on it. It does border on excessively violent at times. Like, you see dudes getting their fucking heads shot off and just blown apart and stuff like that. It's got some really cool interactions, but it doesn't quite have an actual proper ending.
Oh, okay, yep.
You kind of get a choice of one of three pathways, but it doesn't actually give you a full proper ending, whether it's something that's planned or something that they're going to use as a device to dip into a Repeller Fella 2. Now we've hit the mini roguelike block. Let's Revolution. Would you be able to guess that this is a Minesweeper roguelike?
A Minesweeper roguelike, okay. No, but how does that even work?
So you're presented with a tiled grid set, right? And as your character, you're going onto each tile, and it gives you the number of, okay, how many enemies surround this tile, like Minesweeper with bombs.
Yeah.
And you can either use an ability, so your first starting character's ability is like a sort of cyclone punch that punches all the tiles around you. Might not necessarily kill every character that's there, but it'll at least do damage and reveal every tile around you.
Okay.
I'm fucking too stupid for Minesweeper propers though. Like the amount of times I it's like 3. There's 5 tiles revealed. How are you meant to figure out which of the 5 tiles are the ones with the 3 bombs? And then I'll just randomly click around and then click on the bomb and die. Which is sort of what happens here. If you like it has a really great look and some pretty chill music, but again, it's fucking Minesweeper. If you liked Minesweeper on a conceptual level, this adds a really appealing sheen to it and layers some different systems in, like progress systems, keep it engaging. But man, I'm just too dumb for Minesweeper, so I didn't quite get too far with that, and I've uninstalled that. Deadlink. The first of the games on my list that are part of the remixed Friday video stuff that I do. I'm doing Friday Night Funsies and just basically picking out games I want to play and just basically recording them. I don't know. Cyberpunk roguelike, first-person shooter. the main combat shell I've got is a dude who uses a grappling hook, and you go rappel over towards them, and you bust a shotgun off in their face. It's fucking great. It's really satisfying. But again, it's a roguelike, and it gets really repetitive and fucked hard. To the point where I've only gotten to the second boss once, and then it kicked my head in. So that was kind of a bother, but it is really, really fun. Like combat-wise, the movement's really engaging. It's got that sort of cyberpunky sort of, music is the word I was looking. That music was the word I was looking for there. Fucking hell! Oh my god. 30XX is the last of the roguelike mini block sequel to 20XX. I didn't play enough of that to really be able to accurately speak on the differences or changes, which outside of maybe more of a shift to like a 16-bit graphical style, perhaps. But it looks really nice. It plays really well. But I'm starting to wear out on the roguelike concept because of that inherent repetitiveness of it. There is a mode you can set in this though, where you can turn the roguelike elements off and basically just be, here are 8 levels. If you die, you go back to the start of the level, but it randomly generates the actual levels each time by placing all the tile sets together. Which I might go in and have a bit of a crap play around with that. Because I do like playing it, but again, it's that inherent repetitiveness of the roguelike giant formula. And particularly in versions of it like this, where 45 minutes is one run, you don't finish that run, and you kind of lose most progress you make. So that's kind of annoying. To the game, the only game I was actually in a mindset or even borderline physically able to handle when I was like really in the midst of ear infection central.
When I saw this list game, I said, "Why the fuck did you play that?" Kind of now makes a bit more sense.
I wanted something that I could like, and even like the first day of playing, the first hour of playing it, I did the jungle one where you kind of have to do the moving the controller off to fling the Astro Monkey in the air. Even that was a bit too much for me to handle, so I ended up like just going, okay, I'm coming back to this. It's really charming and fun.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, I mean,
it's really cool for what it is.
For what it is really good. Yeah.
Yeah, and like the way in which it builds the nostalgia for PlayStation into what it does. It's really charming. It's really clever. I went through and got all of the relics and all that sort of stuff. I didn't get all the achievements because there's a few that are tied to like falling 30 meters in the monkey and then catching yourself and stuff like that. But it's like when you look at its price, in some regards, it retroactively makes almost the rest of the industry almost criminal for how good it is for what you're paying for it. I really, really enjoyed this. God damn it. Oxenfree 2. Again, 6-7 hour game, played through it in a day when I was off. They get really some cool video and visual tricks that engage in some real head fuckery that goes on in that game. I really like the graphical style on top of the visual tricks they play. It's got this cool painterly look to it, a little bit different than the first Oxenfree. Again, much like the first game, it's really well written, and there's a lot of what the fuck is going on moments of like, what, huh, what? Some really cool side characters in there. Jacob is the main side character you're with. He's kind of a fuckwit who doesn't really know when to shut up, but he does endear himself to you eventually. There are times early on for the first like half you're with him where you're just like, dog, you need to shut the fuck up, eh? But whatever. There were a couple of movement and navigation elements that were a little bit fiddly. I completely missed one character on the playthrough.
Okay.
So like, there's a section because you got the radio element again. You can befriend a DJ that I didn't have come up once.
Okay.
Because you have to be flicking through the radio at just the right time and just the right way. But I'm overall happy with my version of the story that played out in that experience I had. I could go back through and do it again, But those sorts of adventure game / visual novel / walking simulator sort of things, for me, it's that playthrough once done.
Mm.
Because it's that's my version of the story, and that's what I'm happy to sit with.
Yep.
I found this somehow. I can't even remember how I found this. It was like $5 on Steam. Came out earlier this year. Shinobi Non Grata. Yet another really short game, like 3 or 4 hours, but man, it was fucked hard. Really tight control-wise though, really fun. Like that NES style ninja game where you're running from left to right and just cutting fools, and then you run into people who you just get fucked up. The music was a bit repetitive, and like I said, it's not very long because if you're playing well and not dying, you can finish every stage in 2 to 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Like there's a no death run on YouTube that's 45 minutes long.
Okay.
Like I said, I ended up going about 2 to 3 hours on mine. I don't think you'd want it to be longer than that. Because if it was, the way in which it just happily kicks your fucking head in, it would be too long. And while it was hard, I never felt it was actually cheap. So, like, a cool little game. If you like that old school like difficulty in a platformer, then yeah, that's something really good to check out. Unlike Gravity Circuit. I found this to be personally much less fun than Shinobi Non Grata. Sort of takes on the 16-bit Mega Man style a little bit. The hook shot in particular and some movement elements really pissed me off because in order for the hook shot / grappling hook to work, as you've got the grappling hook in the ceiling, you have to hold the right trigger down.
Okay.
So if you need to do it multiple times, you're trying to pull and hold on the grappling hook multiple times, which is less intuitive than hit it once, in the roof, jump with the A button. I don't know. The damage model got in the way as well. I just really didn't dig it. It's one of those older style games that reviewed really, really well. But I went through it. I'm like, what the fuck is this? They're like, no, I'm not seeing what these other people are seeing. It's just, which while again, we've talked plenty of times about the value of reviews. This one didn't quite work. Quake 2. Night Dive did the remaster that came out. They re-released. To call it a re-release is a little bit harsh. It's like Quake's the version of Quake that came out late last year. This has all the expansions in it. Machine Games did another new episode for this, like they did the 2 new episodes for Quake 1. The original expansion packs for this game are fucking shit. I didn't enjoy them anywhere near as much as the campaign. The Night Dive episode was really fun. I played it all on easy because I was like, you get all the achievements just on easy. And it was really fun just fucking dudes up with rocket launchers and not dying as much. I still died, but, you know. I didn't realize that, like, Quake 2 is almost Zelda-like in structure. In that, like, you go into each level, there's a couple of, oh man, you found, oh good job. I couldn't find, god damn it.
Yeah, I think it's the.
We'll have to talk once we're done about how I'm looking up these things.
I think it might be what I'm. Yeah, we'll talk about it after. I think it's my end.
Yes. Oh, okay, fair enough. It's very Zelda-like in that you get to these new areas and they're sort of almost hubs with a couple of levels spoking off. You go into these areas, you get like a card or like a key card, security pass, whatever, come back to this main area. And eventually you get done and then it's like, bang, done. Once you get the flash of kills and time, that's that level or stage or whatever you want to call it, completed. It's a structure that I didn't actually realize Quake 2 had because I'd never played more than the first couple of levels of Quake.
Yeah.
Quake 2. Doesn't have the pretty RTX stuff, but it's way better than I ever gave it credit for. Finally got around to playing Trepang 2. This is supposed to be between 5 and 6 hours. I spent 18 with it, including 6 hours trying to finish one level on the extreme difficulty. Because there's a cheat for like insane gore, and in order to do it, you have to finish this one story mission on the extreme difficulty, which is the second highest difficulty, I'll say. and I was getting fucking fucked up. But it's this thing of what if John Wick was mixed with Fear, like the first person shooter Fear. They get a little too supernatural, sort of like scientific human experiment vibe or horror vibe that I don't think is super necessary. But it still works out really, really well. And there's some really, really cool and clever achievements. Like, there's an achievement to get a headshot with every bullet in the clip of a pistol.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And, like, when you get to the end of the first level, there's a scene where there's a helicopter there and there's a bunch of troops that are going to escort you to this black site. And you get an achievement for killing all of them, which, of course, I did the first time and I didn't even realize there was an achievement for it. You also get an achievement where if you run up, grab them, you can throw them into the blades of the helicopter and get an achievement. So it's really quite cool. Another shorty, about 6-ish hours. My friendly neighborhood is what if Resident Evil was set on the Sesame Street lot? And the Sesame Street puppets were all weird, creepy fucks. It's basically this idea that it's like a Sesame Street-like TV show. It got cancelled, and then they realized that the world is terrible. So then they started becoming terrible. This thing has a really great art style to it. The puzzles, for the most part, are a little esoteric in spots, but it's mainly for the sort of secret pathways and stuff like that really get the most esoteric.
So is there combat in it? Or is it just a
There is.
There is? Okay.
There is combat, but the guns you get shoot like letters.
Oh, okay.
It's like a letter, you get a pistol that's got like a stack of like that Rolodex thing.
Yep.
You whack that in and you just blast them off like almost post-it notes.
Oh, okay.
And then you get like a shotgun style where you just get a book and jam it in and you shoot the book at someone.
Okay.
It has the Resident Evil style map where it'll show you if it's green, that means you've completed everything in there. Which is really, really helpful, but it's a little misleading in that there's a couple of parts where you need to go to a certain place to get something off the wall. The map will show that it's green, that you've done it, but you haven't got that thing. So it's a little bit misleading on that front. But I really, really enjoyed it. I'm getting into the Resident Evil style stuff now. I didn't realize this was a Korean game, but I've heard plenty about Dave the Diver this year.
So have I. Yeah.
Probably one of the biggest indie games and biggest indie surprises of this year. And it's so fucking cool.
Yeah,
it's like,
we should do a checkout on this. You've done on your own, haven't you? Okay, great.
I may have done.
Seriously?
I may have. Because we were going to record. All right, so we were going to do the podcast last week, and last week was Father's Day.
Yes.
And you were doing family stuff, and I'm like, we haven't put anything up on the YouTube channel that hasn't really been the Friday stuff for a bit. I'm going to do some stuff. Hey, Dave the Diver, I haven't played that yet. I'm going to check this out. I don't know if Graham will like this or not. I'll just check it out. I'm like, God damn it.
You never bother asking. That's the bloody problem.
I know! I didn't want to bother you!
You Christ! Just send me a message.
I know!
If you don't get an answer, then still hold off on it. You might get an answer eventually.
I'm sorry, Graham. Please don't hit me.
Jesus.
I think you should play it though.
Yeah, I have it on my list again. So
the two halves of like the diving exploration and catching fish with the javelin or grappling. No, it's not a grappling hook. It's like a harpoon gun.
Yep.
And the exploration of the underwater stuff, and then the sushi restaurant management of the second half. Shouldn't work,
yeah,
but it does.
But it does, yeah.
And like the pixel art style is really beautiful, and they've built in some polygonal elements to it. I've only put about 3 hours into this so far, but I'm really, really enjoying this. I think it might do quite well this year. Jagged Alliance 3. So I finally started playing this after I had my CT scan because I ended up getting moved to earlier in the morning. So I finished work, did the CT scan, came home, and then I proceeded to play this for damn near 6 straight hours. And then I played like another 7 hours on Saturday. It's basically mercenary XCOM, like set in a fictional sort of African / South American environment where a president's been kidnapped and you have to try and find him with your crew of mercenaries.
Okay.
The financial management element's kind of a pain in the ass at points. Like, there are a bunch of times where I nearly ran out of money and couldn't afford to pay for my mercenaries. But I'm going okay for now. I have got it saved at... I think I've got it saved at... Oh, I know where I've got it saved. There's some like rumor of a ghost.
Okay.
And this is where the realistic XCOM part doesn't quite work, where there's apparently a ghost who's holding some treasure, and I got there, and there are a bunch of fucking landmines that went off. So I've saved it, and I'm going to go back to that. But Jagged Alliance 3 is really, really cool.
We've got plans to do a video of this in the coming weeks. So
yes, we could do another video of Dave the Diver with you on board.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, we could. There's nothing stopping us. Plus, once I getting a little bit later into the game, there's more and more systems and everything else that come on board too that wasn't shown off in that video. There's a lot. It's surprising how many systems and how many different elements are in that game. Nuclear Blaze was developed by the lead designer of Dead Cells.
Oh, okay.
He spun off his own one-man studio, made this. I played through this on Friday night for Friday Night Funsies. Really, really short, like hour and a half. And you're a little like thumb-sized, like firefighter dude going through this nuclear facility, putting out fires to try and figure out the fuck is going on. And it just controls it's a really nice, tightly controlling game. The graphical style is very Dead Cells, maybe a little bit more pixelated than Dead Cells. The fire propagation really works accurately. The water physics in putting out the fires is really cool and really fun. And it's super cheap. I think I bought it on sale for like $5.
It's not off now, up to $14.50, but yeah.
Yeah. Its normal price is about $14.50, but I got it during one of the Steam sales for like $5, I think. And then once you finish it, there's a new game plus mode called Hold My Beer, where you get another key that can open secret doors.
Oh, okay.
That you couldn't open the first time through. So I want to do a second run through. And the fire apparently spreads way faster and way harder too. So I'm like, oh shit, that should be fun.
So you're not fighting you're not fighting enemies, but you're fighting
enemies.
You're fighting the environment, so to speak. You're fighting fire. Basically.
There's one enemy.
Okay.
And it's a sort of scientific test subject gone wrong.
Okay.
But for the most part, yeah, it's completely environmental combat and trying to put out all the fires to progress.
It's been out for a couple of years. I never heard of it. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. I'd seen a couple of reviews here and there. But because, yeah, it's just... I think it was just an experiment thing he wanted to go off and do after doing Dead Cells.
Yeah.
And then the last one, Warstride Challenges. Basically a speedrunning first-person shooter, kind of in the vibe of Neon White.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Nowhere near as charming. And it requires way more precision in certain spots. Before we started recording, I was doing a bonus level where there's very specific parts to slide through, jump through, and then jump, slide through.
Yep.
But it's really, really easy to jump too high or slide the wrong way and go into the wall. And there was some just precision requirements that were just pissing me off. So I just like, fuck this. I don't know if I'm going to play too much more of this. I did that on Friday night as well, and I ended up finishing the video finishing it up after about 2 hours because there was an Unreal Engine crash. So that was a good way to end the video. It was like, this ends at a nice round 2 hours. I did watch a couple things, but I'm not going to get into them too much. Just a couple DC animated films. Suicide Squad, Hell to Pay. Nice, violent, but yeah, not as good as some of the ones that have come before it. And Justice League versus the Fatal Five. They get a new Green Lantern by the name of Jessica Cruz, and I really like her sort of survivor's guilty anxiety elements and how they get stuck into that. But they were fun to watch, but I don't think they're as good as the top tier of the DC animated films. My 4K Blu-ray copy of Across the Spider-Verse should rock up hopefully this week.
Uh-huh.
I'm looking for, oh, fuck me, am I looking forward to that. We didn't end up going to see it in the cinemas, so I'm really strapping in for that. That actually didn't take me as long as I thought it would.
No, that took about maybe half hour or so.
40,
yeah.
Half hour, 40 minutes.
35,
some good stuff in there, a couple of not so good things. I'm trying to make it a point to not force myself to finish things that aren't so great. Like I'm basically just going to go, fuck Warstride challenges. Whatever. Gravity Circuit I've already uninstalled. Whatever. So basically for the next couple of weeks, it might be just a lot of, hey, Jagged Alliance 3 and Dave the Diver. Because they're both fairly long games. Now, my question to you. Did you start Starfield?
You'll find out very shortly.
Oh, you motherfucker! I was going back and forth on whether or not I was going to buy the expensive version and start playing it.
You don't have to buy any version. Just buy the version you get with Game Pass. Seriously.
There is also that part. I did download it on Game Pass when it released. I just haven't played it yet. And I don't... Given how fucking huge that game is, I don't know how much I want to play of it, if I want to play it at all.
Yeah, well, that's what I'll get to in a moment. But yeah, so my gameplay list is very small. It's 3 games versus Steve's 18. Primarily because I've been travelling a lot, and just not the enough time to play a lot of these games. The game I've been playing the most of that I really, 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 really enjoy is Shadow Gambit: The Cursed Crew. It is bloody awesome. This is Mimi Games' 4th game. They've done quite a few of these.
Third and a half, if you count like the standalone expansion to Samurai 1, Desperados 3, and then this.
Yeah, so they've done. Desperados 3 was the big one that I played a few years back. I think you played it. You played a bit of it as well. I think from memory.
I played a bit of it. Tired out on it. Just the sheer level of planning and trial and error. Not even trial and error. Just the patience needed for this was a little bit.
Yep. So the prior to that was Shadow Tactics: The Blades of the Shogun, which is really, really good as well. This one's the most recent one. Is obviously came out about a month and a bit ago. Was Shadow Gambit. It basically takes all of the things from those three games or those 2 games, and just makes them a really good version of one of those. Now that might sound really
Piratised,
but it is really, really good. The voice acting of all the characters is fucking top notch. The music is really, really, really good. The gameplay it's the same as and when you the mission based gameplay is the same as Desperados 3 and Shadowgun. What they've put into this game now in terms of between the mission stuff is where they've really expanded on it versus other games. There is character based side missions you can do, like almost like loyalty quests in a way. They're not
sweet.
They're not hard at all. They're just really they're not even mission based stuff. You basically spend this time between missions on the pirate ship called the Red Marley, and you do little side quests on the ship. You don't even go out and do missions. So they've done that.
Is it conversation based, sort of relational?
Sort of
stuff,
but not with any particular depth per se. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're just doing missions as those side characters, sort of alongside what their role is on the ship. And we'll get when we get into the actual. It's much easier to explain this in a video, which we'll do as you know. Which we're putting a video up shortly of this one, but it's got you play as the main character Fia Montecarlo, and she's a Jamaican sort of what am I looking for?
Heritage.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Sort of pirate, and she's voice acting is really, really good. And you've got the ability then to using what's known as soul energy and these black pearls, you can revive other crewmates. And you seem to be able to do those in any order. you've got a choice of which one which ones you choose, and that it manages to do that really well. And it's like you would think that if you choose the wrong order, you're going to be affected by that when you go into missions, but it doesn't do that at all. So they managed to get the balance between the various characters really, really well done. Um, you've also got when you get a new character, because the story elements of how they introduce those characters to the game, you then do essentially you do tutorial missions for each character that is linked to how they to the story, basically saying you've been away for a long time. Let's remember how you do stuff, but it's also your tutorial mission for those particular characters, which are just those characters on their own doing their own thing, in a sort of a mini sort of challenge thing. It's just really effective way of introducing the characters and what each of them can do, rather than saying this character can do this, showing in some sort of cutscene how each of their things works. Then you go into the mission and go, oh, that's how it works. Oh shit, that didn't work the way I thought it did. So you've actually got the ability to use it without any real sort of impact or consequence if you get it wrong, kind of thing. What's also really interesting about it is they've added in a sort of a minor upgrade part of it too. So each character's got their main sort of ability, but it can also be upgraded with a sort of a second ability for the thing, and that gives you then overall 4 things each character can do. The way you upgrade those is you get throughout each mission you get a thing, a currency for one of the term called vigor, and basically each character will give 1 vigor into the mission. Like you get up to 3 characters in each mission. Each one allocates 1 vigor to the story, to the mission. You get 3 out of it. If ever, because you've now got to a point where you've got 5 or 6 characters unlocked, and you're picking and choosing who you go into each mission with, characters can obviously sit out missions. They won't be involved in it, obviously. So if you choose them in the next one, they give their vigor plus bonus vigor. So it gives you incentive to really use all the characters.
To
rotate the characters through. And once you level up a level of vigor, which takes a fair bit of time, probably the only thing I say against it is it's 25 vigor per upgrade, and you're getting 3 per mission. So it can take 5 or 6 missions to get an upgrade, and there's 8 characters. You do the maths on that. It's a lot to it. It's a lot to it. Now
I was going to ask you. Go.
I think the game is actually quite long. I think there's a lot of missions in this thing. I'm 35 hours into it. 24 and a half.
Fucking hell.
I'm 25 hours into it. And I think I've just gone through. I got an achievement a little while back for completing Act 2. And in the game there's a logbook where you can go and see how you're going overall, and it says I'm about a quarter, and not even that, like a fifth of the way through the game after my 25 hours. So it seems like I think there's a lot to the game, but it doesn't seem like it's padding, which I think is the one thing I had. I read a couple of reviews, sort of skimmed a couple of reviews, and sort of got the impression that it's really big in terms of what you do, like the length of the story is long. But when I started playing, I thought, okay, how are they padding this game out for the length of that? I'm sort of getting the impression that it is, because there are multiple islands you go to, and you'll go back to the islands multiple times and do slightly different missions there, but it's on the same island. So that's essentially how they've sort of padding. It's not the right word, but that's the only way I can come up with. It is padding, but it isn't padding, if you know what I mean. Like it's worthwhile content what they've put into it, because each time you're going back to it, you're doing a different thing, you're approaching it a different way, so it's not the same thing over and over again. But it does give a little bit.
It also depends on just like the definition of padding.
Yeah, well, padding can be like just doing busy work, but this is not busy work. Yeah. It's doing really good, well structured missions and that sort of thing. So I'm really, really enjoying a lot of it. I mean, as I said, they've added in all this other stuff into it, the side mission stuff. They've they've added in these things called captain's tests, which are basically they're probably the true version of a loyalty quest. So there's a lot to it, and I get the impression that once you've finished the story sort of stuff, you can keep doing that other stuff just as like an in-game stuff. So as if you, because you can only do those the initial character-based stuff between each mission, and each one of those character-based things is 5 parts long. So
Yep.
if you've got these 8 characters or 7 characters, you're the 8th one. You don't actually do this stuff for your character. You do it for the 7 other characters. You've got essentially 35.
You don't have to prove loyalty to yourself.
No. Well, it's not actually proving loyalty. It's not really proving loyalty yourself. It's like you're proving. Sort of, as I said, I'm not really sure the loyalty mission is really the right term to use for these little small things, but like if you do those 7, you've got the 7 characters, and 5 of those in each of those have 5 little these side questy things. That's 35 of them. So I'm assuming there's 35 missions at least, because otherwise you'd run out of missions to do this with. But maybe there isn't. I don't know. But yeah, it's really hit well. They've combined all the good things from all the previous games they've done. Each of the characters' personality, their dialogue is just top notch. The music's really good as well. The same person who did the last one.
Isn't that Austin Wintry who did the music on that last one?
No, it's I'm going to get his name because it's a slightly odd name to pronounce.
While you're looking that up, I had a look on how long to beat for the estimate times, and it's like main story 25 and a half hours. So you've already gone past that.
Oh yeah, I'm not worried about
main
that.
plus extra is like 30, and then the completionist run is about 50.
Yeah.
So I can see you hitting about, I don't know, between 50 and 60 hours in this, given your proclivities for exploration and patience.
Yeah. And I don't play games quickly, so we know that for a fact. So, Filippo Pecos, I think I'm completely butchering that name, but he's the one who's done the last couple of soundtracks for this one and the last one, and I think he may have also done. I'm not sure he did the Shogun, but he definitely did Desperados. Don't think he did the Shogun one.
Filippo Beck because
yeah, there's probably more flourish to it.
I'd wager you're pretty close to the pronunciation on that.
There's probably more flourish to it than I did, but that's the best I can do. It's
nothing wrong with some flourish.
It's about the soundtrack's really long, like it's 60 odd tracks to it, and that's really really good. So yeah, 60
exactly 60 on the old Bandcamp.
60 on the so it's 60 odd tracks long, and it's like a good hour and a half of music. He did a very similar amount of music for the Desperados one as well. So he's I'm really rate him as a music composer now.
What are you playing this on?
I'm playing this on PC. So I'm playing it on PC with controller. And that's where the Ally on my 3 trips. This got a lot of work on my 3 trips. It was the perfect game. I could get about on the PC you're getting a constant 60 frames a second without any drops at all. On the Ally, you're getting 45 constant. So it's obviously not as high as obviously on the desktop PC, but the main thing is it's really consistent, it's really stable, and that's really the main thing about it. But yeah, so I put of those 25 hours, I'd say probably a good dozen or so was spent in hotel rooms playing it at night after doing various things. So and on a couple of fame flights. So it is a really 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 good game. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And I suspect unless something comes along it's maybe SteamWorld Build might do it maybe, but this is definitely my game of the year so far without any.
I was thinking that was always going to be the case leading up to this launch. We were both like, this is probably going to be the grand game of the year unless either Satisfactory or SteamWorld do something earth shaking, or like Satisfactory gets its 1.0, then it's automatic game of the year for Graham.
But this is very much the game of the year for me. So I'm still looking forward to SteamWorld Build, but we'll get to that stuff later on because since we've been away, there's been some announcements of various dates, so we'll probably get to some of those. But yeah, you're going to say?
I was going to say I'm very interested if any of the other two games you have to talk about are Dredge.
No.
Ah!
This game. Yeah, this game you actually played
I have played this.
earlier this year, late last year. I can't
I
remember the
believe it was earlier this year I played this.
This game, Fist Forged in Shadow Torch, came to Game Pass about a couple of months back. And I thought, oh, I haven't played a good one of these in a while. I know Steve thought it was. I thought Steve thought it was good. If that was really the way to say it.
It was fine.
It was good.
I think there were some real technical issues on the PC that made it really problematic and just annoying to play.
But I've now played. I've probably played what I'm going to play of it at this point. I probably won't go back to it. But I really enjoyed the bit of a play of it. It was really, really solid. It's got some pretty damn good visuals. It's got some pretty good voice acting in it too. The setting that they put you in is really, really neat. And your abilities with this sort of exoskeleton thing that you put on this rabbit thing and use around is actually
the fist.
Is really, really good. Like you can, the big fish is the main one, but you can also have a big drill thing that you can do stuff with. So it's really quite neat in terms of what it does. But I think now that I've got Shadow Gambit to play and other things to get back to, I probably won't get back to it. It's really just a bit of a filler game for me, but it was a really, really good. It was really. I
think there's an emphasis on combat once you get further in.
Yeah,
that might not vibe with your because with Metroidvania style games like this, I think you tend to prefer very much the exploration.
Oh, for sure,
and sort of puzzle solving elements rather than the combat.
Yeah.
Like the part I ended up getting to inside the, for lack of a better term, inside the power plant or sort of factory sort of thing. And it ended up becoming very combat heavy, and just the technical issues made that combat just kind of fucking annoying.
Yeah, I haven't had any issues with on the Xbox, so maybe that's a bit different now. But
I think it's just a PC optimization thing where, because of the vast scope of configurations, trying to optimize the game that runs really well on console sometimes doesn't go as well as you would perhaps like. But it is what it is.
Yeah. And the last game.
That was a surprise.
Yeah, that was the last game that I just remembered that late that I had played that one. The last game is the one I played this morning, and it's this one.
Yep.
So, I've only played an hour and a half to 2 hours of this at most at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It really was just to say what this game is about, if I can determine that in 2 hours of playing. And it's on. I think by now everyone knows what this game is in terms of what you're doing in the moment-to-moment stuff. So I'm just going to talk about what I thought of it. I'm not too sure what I think of it, if I'm honest, at this point. I think, as you said earlier, the game has the potential to be so vast and so big that I think of a 2 hour stretch of that I'm playing so far, I'm not gonna get that impression from a 2 hour play session. Visually, it's quite impressive. From the environments they've created and all that kind of stuff. The little sort of cutscenes they have when you're going in and out of planets. There is a lot of menus, which I think a lot of people, there's been a lot of views about sort of viewing a lot of menus and stuff like that. It's not as much as I thought it was, unless it gets more of them, those as I go into it, as the more systems get introduced. But so far, you've got an inventory you go into, you've got a star map, and you've got your inventory, your weapons, and that stuff like that. It's got the same thing as a lot of these games have, where you start on a main quest line and there's 6,000 freaking side quests that take you everywhere under the sun. And that's pretty much what I've done in the first couple of hours. Is I played through let's call it the tutorial introduction mission. Got to this particular city called New Atlantis, I think it's called. And that's where all of the side quests start, appearing. I do like the way in which those side quests get given to you, for the want of a better term. You don't walk up to a icon on the map. You hear people talking about stuff. And the fact you hear them, that's how you get them, sort of thing. So it's a little bit.
There was a bit of that in Outer Worlds off the top of my head.
Yeah, so it's got a lot of it's got a lot of outer worlds vibes for, as you can imagine, for a lot of reasons. But it's I think the way you get those missions, I think, is probably going to be fairly organic, and there's probably a chance that you're probably going to miss some because of it. I suspect.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not going to miss the main one, obviously, but you could miss some of those side quests. Um, you you've it's you've got the ship combat, which is okay. I've only done one of those so far, and it was okay. It's interesting that you can actually go. So I'm playing Xbox Series X. Hadn't had any issues with performance, frame rate, something like that's been really rock solid. Um, the one issue I have had with it though is the character. You've got first person and then two levels of third person. So pressing
Yep.
the back button, you can sort of zoom out a bit further. But what happens is it gets into buildings, internal buildings, whatever, and the camera shrinks down a lot, so you don't have the same um, sort of movement that you would normally have. Like when you get outside, the camera goes further back, and you've got a lot of ability to move around. When you get into buildings and stuff, it seems to shrink the camera down because the walls get in the way of the camera or some fucking, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And I find that when you get into combat, because you're doing a lot of combat inside, it becomes really claustrophobic, and I'm not liking that part of the combat at the
I
moment.
think for better or worse, one thing that's really surprised me is the scope or the vast range in review opinions. Like leading up to this game coming out, I thought people were going to go, it was going to be rivaling Elden Ring and Zelda in as review reception.
I did not think of that at all.
Um,
So yeah, that's where you and I differ on that. I thought it was going to be. He was going to have some very high scores, no doubt, but it was also going to have some lowish scores. But it wasn't going to be universal praise.
yeah,
Because I just don't
which
think
is weird when you compare it to something like Skyrim.
because I just don't think a Bethesda game isn't going to get that in 2023. Not now.
Anymore.
Not anymore. Not with their.
And that's
Fallout.
exactly what this is from what everyone's saying. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
if you like those Bethesda games, here's
Yeah.
a Bethesda game. It's in space.
Yeah, basically, and I don't mind them. I mean, I've enjoyed.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with it. I've enjoyed a lot of stuff like that in the past. I think this will, for me, will be a game. If I go back to it, will be a game that I go back to it and play for it for the next 6 months or more, or 12
Yep.
months, because I'm not too sure it's a game that I want to sit down and play for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. It's just not that game for me. But it would be the game to drop in once a week, once a fortnight maybe, for 3 or 4 hours and go, right, I've got my fill of it. I've progressed the story a little bit. I've done 6 side quests. I've done all this other stuff. I've had enjoyment time for that period of time. Right, now let's go do something else for the next couple of weeks and maybe come back to it. And I think with the names of those, with the nature, I don't think you're going to lose the thread of any of the stuff in doing it that way either. So, because the stories aren't that deep and meaningful and intricate that you're going to lose track of what you're doing moment to moment. But
It did seem that people were expecting a far more open or far vaster sort of experience, almost on the level of a No Man's Sky, of like you'd be able to fly your ship over a planet and be able to run end to end, like loop a planet rather than outer world. This basically just screams Outer Worlds, just far more expansive.
Yeah, and that's kind of when I started sort of playing it. I've got an awful lot of that vibe from it. So, I think there are some. I haven't actually really done a lot of exploring. I do want to do that. I do want to sort of test the exploration part of it, but see what you can and can't do. I do know that a YouTuber who basically flew 7 hours to a planet and just so you can do a lot of stuff like that. So yeah, it's got a lot to it. Has it got too much to it? Yeah, don't know. But so far, I mean, I'm enjoying a lot of.
Doesn't quite have the freedom of a No Man's Sky.
No, but I don't think it ever.
It was never going to.
It was never going to, even though people might have thought it was.
Yeah. No Man's Sky is procedurally generated, so it was always going to have that.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that might be setting this game apart from No Man's Sky specifically, that's what you're going to compare it to, is the shipbuilding in Starfield is a lot more
involved.
It's involved and that sort of thing. So, I mean, obviously, they are in structure completely very very different.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean I'm at this stage I'm probably on the fence with it more than anything.
Yep.
I mean, the fact is it's on Game Pass, so there's no price to pay to get it.
Mm.
It's a 103 gig download on the Xbox, so it's pretty sizable
It's
game for
about
it.
it was about 111 on PC.
Yeah, so it's pretty sizable game to download. Um, yeah. I mean, I'm not really sure ultimately where I'll end up with it, but I am enjoying. I've enjoyed what of it. Yeah, as you said, I've enjoyed those games in the past. Therefore, what I've done so far with this game, I'm enjoying it.
Mm.
Whether I'll come back to it in a lot and play it in big chunks, I think is probably how I'll do it, and then drop out for weeks on end just to do
The
something
other
else.
weird part,
But
the other weird part to me is how much people are making of the game structure and the importance of New Game Plus, which like apparently there's entire systems and quest lines and a whole bunch of other shit that you don't even see until New Game Plus. And for a game that you could spend between 100 and 200 hours getting through the first playthrough,
mm,
having that much scope and having that much stuff that's missable and only accessible through New Game Plus is also kind of a it's the line of how much is too much and how much of the player's time is respected. If you're going to have
well,
basically the expectation that people are going to drop 400, 500 hours into a game like this, like why not put all that dope shit in the main game? And obviously, I'm saying this without having played it, so
yeah, and
I haven't played it yet.
that's what I'm. Yeah, so that's what I'm coming from too. I mean, I've played 2 hours of it, if that.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, I can sort of see that to a degree, but uh, go back to what we said
it's
before.
not like these games not going to have enough shit to last you for 100, 200 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I came back before. Like, this is one of those games. Like, it's a very reductive thing to
Mm.
say, but like this game, its structure, its design, it it's known.
It's
um,
the inherent flaws and the inherent
appeal of
qualities of Bethesda Game Studios
and appeal
games.
and appeal of those games anyway in
Yeah,
general, not even necessarily Bethesda games, but that kind of game. Like I was saying, it's
there are
why
parts that are fucked. There are
the
parts that aren't.
no, well, not necessarily that. It's not the fact that they're fucked or anything. It's
It
just
is the
that
tidiest one they've released from all reports.
yeah, I've had one weird bug that, but it wasn't particularly issue big one at all. But I mean, the fact is that I can potentially walk around the environment, and if the only way you get these, I think they call them activities in the game, to hear characters, NPC characters talking about it. And I don't know if you need to hear one word of dialogue and then the game will prompt you about it, whether you've got to listen to the whole conversation. I'm not too sure
Mm.
where it sort of draws that line. But if there's a possibility you could miss stuff, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing per se. That's
Not
just
necessarily.
like it's yeah. As long as I think the main thing has to be is the main quest line is
Mm.
that decent enough that it's going to draw you through the world that they've created in order for you to
Yep.
experience these potential side stuff. Which, for most part, in a lot of cases in these sort of games, is actually kind of better writing because they can really focus on one specific
Mm.
thing and get it nailed down, rather than this massively, 50-hour storyline they've got to try and piece together over several months of playing time. So, yeah, so I can sort of see how that stuff could sort of fall down in some places, but um, yeah, I'm on the fence about it. I'll definitely keep playing it, no doubt about that. But it's not going to be something I'll go back to quickly. I want to get through Shadow Gambit first, but
Like you're not going to obsessively just sit and play this thing for like 8 hours at a time. And
no, I don't think that's not even regardless of this particular game. That type of game I don't play like that anyway. So um, it's not that regardless of whether it's Bethesda or anything else or Starfield or anything else like that. It's not. I play those games in short bursts because that's just how I play them basically. So this is no different to
mm,
that. But um, yeah, but that is my 3 games.
mm,
So yeah, it's kind of yeah, it's interesting that like the reception of that game has been quite mixed. Isn't it's not hasn't been mixed, but it's definitely one of their better received games of the last couple of years. It's definitely something that I think from a Xbox perspective, if you want to put into that realm, it's probably landed very well for them. Um, but
Excuse me.
But in terms of like the overall sort of stuff, not too sure. Not too sure whether.
Mm.
As I said, I mean, I've played 2 hours of what is a 200-hour game, so I can't really give you a definitive answer. But
it's kind of annoying that the three biggest and most positively received in some regards games of this year are all three of them are 100, 200-hour behemoths
yeah,
in Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate 3, which I'm really curious about.
yeah.
Well, fuck me, where am I going to... And then Starfield.
Starfield, yeah, and even Elden Ring earlier
And
this year. Even Elden Ring.
Finishing off Elden Ring
Yeah.
from last year.
Last year,
Like,
yeah.
the sheer size and scope, and there's like a bunch of smaller, in some regards, games. Like Jagged Alliance 3 is meant to be like a 60-hour game.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was just like, man, we're in a situation where there's just too many good games. People need to chill the fuck out.
Yeah, which is a good thing. I mean,
it's
a good thing.
Get to play them all.
You're just going to play them all, so that's just the one thing you've got to try and balance out. But so yeah, let's head on into the beginning of the end. So we've got it's been a bit of lack of activity, I guess, for the want of a better one, on our YouTube channel. But you've done a couple of things. You did your Friday night. What do you call it now? Friday night funsies or something?
Friday night funsies.
Funsies. So you've gone away from the fighting stuff. Speaking of fighting stuff,
I was going to say there were two games that was rather ominous in their absence, and that was Diablo 4 and Street Fighter 6.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about Street Fighter 6. Have you not played it? Obviously, you haven't played it because it wasn't on English.
I haven't played it since our last podcast.
Oh, okay.
Not because I haven't. In some ways, not because I haven't wanted to. There's just so much else that I want to play, and I just haven't felt, in some regards, up to trying to play it.
Yep.
At a half decent level.
Yep.
As I've got 80 hours in that thing.
Mm.
And there's a fuckload of other games that I want to get to.
Yeah.
Like, at some point I need to start, or I really want to start Remnant 2 and Ratchet.
Yeah.
And there's Blasphemous 2 and a whole bunch of other indie games that have come out in the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, that I'm like, I want to get to these at some point. So for now, Street Fighter's sort of falling by the wayside to an extent.
Yep.
A shame, but is what it is.
Yeah, yep. So in terms of...
We didn't even talk about Gamescom. The opening night live.
Yeah, that's probably the only thing. I didn't find that particularly exciting. But what I did get out of Gamescom what I got out of Gamescom in most parts was we got some release dates for some games on our respective list. The big one for both of us probably is SteamWorld Build. Got a 2nd of December release date, which is a bit on the late side in the year, but it's better late than... I'm glad it's this year, not next year, basically, but I would have liked it to be a bit earlier. Station to Station, a game that we covered in in a checkout video a month or so ago, got a 4th of October release date. That's also very close to one of the games I'm looking forward to this exactly the same day, and that's the Lamplighters League on the 4th of October. That is the XCOM style game. I think it's been mentioned before, but that's got a lot of the story and the environment and what they've created for that game. The vibe of that game. To me, I'm hoping it sticks the landing of what it's trying to do, but it's probably going to have a bit of a tricky thing. And The Invincible, I think a game that I think we did. Do we do it?
Yeah, sort of Mars-based walking simulator.
That's got a 7th of November date. I'm not sure if that came out of Gamescom or not, but that's something that's come up.
It came out in like the Gamescom window.
I think it was around that time. Yeah. So there's a couple of games we've got now some dates for, which is good.
Fucking November's fleshed out pretty big.
Yeah, so looking decent now.
But not as big as October. I think October's still bigger.
I think October's probably still bigger.
October's still crazy. September has some pretty decent sized things in it. December's got a few things with Avatar.
Yep.
And now SteamWorld Build. But yeah, there are quite a few things lined up for the sort of a November October window or October November window that could hopefully, fingers crossed, come out to be really quite impressive
Mm.
and just further add to the fucking list of games to
Yeah.
play. And Borderline make Game of the Year, fucking an absolute fucking shit show
Yep.
to get ready for, even. Let alone try and actually fucking narrow down and shit.
Um, yes. So
yeah.
that's basically kind of where we're at. We've we've got a lot of games on our list that we want to that'll hopefully come out. We'll actually stick their 2023 dates. I think the game that probably both of us are looking for the most is probably SteamWorld Build. I think yes, they're on both of our lists, I should say specifically.
It is between the as like a collective. I would argue, that's probably up there. My Time at Sandrock comes out of early access on the 26th of September.
Yeah, that's something I'm looking forward to seeing what they've done with that. So another game that I'm interested in that sort of got a more didn't get an actual date, but got a window more specifically was Broken Roads, which is the Australian CRPG game, sort of game that's now been 2023's been put on it. Up until recently, it was a coming soon. They actually did some stuff at Gamescom that I think led to that 2023 window, rather than just coming soon and not having a date at all. So yeah, I'm going to be interested to see if I'm going to assume they're going to have that game at PAX this year.
PAX Australia.
Yeah, PAX Australia, which I'll be going to. So I'll be interested with that, if that's anything more than the demo that they have.
Did you ever play Disco Elysium?
A little bit of, but not much of. But yeah, I think you were saying earlier about that game you played that was very Australian. This one is very Australian. I played
Repeller Fella.
Yeah, I played a bit of the demo when it came out. It's still available to get it on Steam, and yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, you can still get a demo. You can still get it. Yeah, so
we should do a video of that.
We probably should. Yeah. But yeah, you'll you start hearing some of the dialogue and that, and you start reading dialogue. Yeah, that's Australian.
Fuck off, fucking there you go, mate.
Not far off, actually. Not far off.
There's quite a bit of that in Repeller Fellas. Oh, fucking there you go, mate. What are we fucking doing around here? Fucking heard you were bloody kicking them Soviets' heads in, you fucking. But yeah.
Yeah. So
I think outside of Gamescom, here's how long it's been since we last spoke. The Evo grand finals happened the day after, or the night this recorded.
Yeah.
The last episode recorded, so we didn't even talk about the final of Evo, which I ended up watching, which was really, really entertaining. But yeah, realistically, to me, there's only outside of some Gamescom's announcements, there's been 2 big studio closings.
Yeah, I should have covered it in my discussion with Shadow Gambit, but Mimi Games, the developer of that, literally announced literally weeks after putting out the game, saying we're closing. We're basically too tired, which is what they were saying.
Yeah. And they're talking about like the bonuses that they're going to get from that thing are basically, more they're going to set us up, so we're calling it and we're walking off in the sunset. Yeah,
which is interesting. I can see why they're doing it, but I mean it's interesting. I'd like to think that wasn't a surprise to the employees of that company.
I hope so.
Who also knew that was the plan. If it went well and we make these goals, then we'll close this company down, sort of thing. I'd like to think that was the case, the way they did it, but don't know.
They have an all-hands meeting where they're just sitting down. All right, so Shadow Gambit did really well.
Yeah.
You'll all be getting some really decent bonuses, and also surprise,
your last day's tomorrow. Exactly.
Last day's tomorrow, you fucks.
Yeah.
Get out.
Hopefully that's not how it went down, but you never really know. But yeah, so that was a bit of
That's how it went down on the other closing.
Yeah, true. But the other, yes, I'm hoping. I'm sad they're going to closing and not going to be making games anymore. I couldn't not say that. But seriously, the way they went out on their own terms, so you can't really.
Yeah.
like you got to give them credit for that. So they've made three hell of a good games over the last decade or so. So
They didn't get bought and absorbed by a massive conglomerate and then shut down 6 months later.
yeah, speaking of that,
Yeah, and that's what happened with Volition.
Volition. So yeah, so
Those poor fuckers.
they were bought by
Deep Silver.
Deep Silver years
in the
ago,
THQ fire sale.
Fire Sale, and then Deep Silver got bought by Embracer Group. Is that how it went?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, that's exactly how it went. Deep Silver were doing some work with THQ Nordic when that got rebranded.
Yep.
Embracer came in and embraced.
Yep.
Then the Saints Row reboot came out.
And
the world collectively didn't give a fuck and shrugged.
Yep, basically.
And about 6 months down the line, they're like, "Hey, guess what? Surprise! You're closing."
Yeah.
30 years Volition has been kicking for.
Yeah. It's interesting because I mean
this is a way more fucked up way to get closed than what Me got.
Oh, 100% agree. 100% agree.
Mm.
It's interesting. I think a lot of what how that whole sort of had happened is sort of stems from that the news that a month or so ago where Embracer Group sort of out of nowhere announced they lost out on $2 billion worth of investment or something. And that turned out it was going to be from the Saudi investment fund thing. And
Saudi blood money.
Because of that, missing out on that, that sort of has led to, the speculation is it led to one of these things being that Volition had to be closed. Now, I'm not too sure that's necessarily a line you could actually draw, but that's an...
We've got to tighten our belts.
So, yeah, so it's sad when it happens. Obviously, sad when a game studio closes like that. You would have liked it if rather than closing, they were given the option to be sold and someone else bought them, at least keep them around so they can make it the next game. But you got to take
part of the Volition.
You got to also take
part of the Volition Deep Silver deal was the IP stuff.
Well, that's the thing too. Like that was what I was getting at. It was their previous games, like they haven't landed well, so you've got to take that into consideration if that development studio is worth keeping for anybody. If they can't make the games anymore, like sad as it might be and harsh as it is, maybe they shouldn't be around. But I think they could have come back with a game that was better than... No, they should have given another chance, in my opinion. Not necessarily with the Embracer Group, but like... I mean, bloody... I mean, Christ, Sony, Microsoft, they could have friggin' bought them and kept them going, sort of thing. Like, they're not going to be that big of a company that they couldn't do that.
No.
So...
They'd run a fairly hot streak with Red Faction Guerrilla, which was a massive surprise to a lot of people. Red Faction Armageddon kind of fell on its ass because THQ, I think, really pushed for that to come out early, and it just wasn't the follow-up to Guerrilla that people wanted. Saints Row the Third, though, and Saints Row 4 were world shakers.
Yeah.
Like the 4-game run that's Red Faction Guerrilla, Red Faction Armageddon, which, okay, yes, fine, meh. But then Saints Row the Third and then Saints Row 4, that's a pretty decent 4-game run. And everyone was like, yo, Volition, let's go. And then they did Angels of Mayhem, and then they did this Saints Row reboot.
Yeah, and
everyone's like, yo, Volition.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you got this high, then you got these massive, quite low lows. So you got to sort of think, okay, have they lost whatever they had before? Have people left?
Key staff that were big.
Have key staff left that led to those those 4 games being made? Have they gone to the fact that they just can't make those games anymore? Nah, don't know.
Tonal differences and tonal expectations in 2023 versus 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
With Saints Row the Third and its humour, its style, its narrative, whatever you want to say, that made Saints Row the Third so awesome when it came out, would that work so well in 2023? Like, Johnny Gat's a fucking dumb dipshit.
Yeah.
But some of the other elements around that game...
Yeah, would it land as well as it did back then as it would now? Who knows? Who knows? You would like to think that it would, but I don't think it would, not to the same degree. But And also the fact is now that 10 years later, you've got dozens, hundreds of more games coming out in versus what it was back then. Not that it was small numbers back then, but you've got so much more to compete to with now. It's just alone in the gaming space.
Competing for eyes and ears and minds is
Yeah.
such a much more difficult task now than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah, just in the gaming alone.
It does make it it does make it a shame that there's becoming a real lack of a middle tier, like that B tier sort of thing, which is like a nice little spot for a team like Volition to slide into.
Yeah.
Like you got your massive AAA, between triple and single A with those massive varying scales of massive projects. You got your really big, like either big or just really well-regarded indie teams up to quote-unquote triple I, but there isn't as much of that mid-tier, B-tier range that it used to be on the Xbox, PlayStation 2, and even to a lesser extent, the 360, PlayStation 3 era. There's been a real industry sort of shift or schism in like the size and scope of games. It's either you go on fucking massive and Starfield, sort of Zelda, that sort of scope, or you're going indie.
Yeah.
Like Jagged Alliance 3 to me is something of an indie game that just happens to have a bigger publisher behind it in THQ Nordic.
Yeah.
And that's not what THQ used to be. It just happens they bought the name and they're just like, hey, let's rename ourselves to THQ Nordic.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. Is it good for games? Time will tell.
Yeah. It's hard to, it's one of those things, like, it's hard to really, like you would think that the people who work for Volition will find work elsewhere in the games industry. You would think. You'd hope, I should say. If that's assuming that's what they want, that's assuming that's what they want to do. I'm not gonna force them to go back into games if they don't want to. But yeah, maybe that type of game is more than an issue. It's the type of game that they're making is the issue, rather than them themselves. Who knows? But yeah, it's just
the way in which that Saints Row reboot just landed with such a leaden thud.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That was one of the biggest surprises for me this year, in that I was hoping that game was going to come out and be Saints Row the Third 2.
Yeah, and then
goddamn did it not.
Then Volition will be back onto their train again and can make it the new brand IP or do an actual proper sequel to that franchise. But yeah. Anyway, we have been going for an hour and 20 odd minutes, so let's wrap this one up. Hopefully we're back onto a normal regular schedule for at least the next couple of months. I'll do have PAX to go to, so we'll see how that goes. I'll be away that week. But yeah, until then, we'll be back hopefully in a fortnight with a more regular podcast. Keep an eye on the YouTube channel for the various videos we're going to be put up. We're going to be doing a checkout of Shadow Gambit, the Cursed Crew, and the Jagged Alliance 3 will be our next couple on the list to do.
And probably a Dave the Diver, second Dave the Diver video.
I'll do one of those as well. In fact, I may just do that where I played that for the first time and you tell me how to play it like we did with Dredge. Maybe do that.
That I really like doing that with Dredge. That was really fun.
Yeah, so we might try and do it that way, see how that goes. But until then, thanks everyone for watching the Should I Play This Game podcast for episode 286 of the 11th of September. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Hopefully your voice...
I didn't necessarily have much listens. I'll talk about them next time. I haven't really listened to as much album-wise.
Right, cool.
So, yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Play that song. If you can find it. There it is. The way you're sitting there like... Can't fucking find it. What the fuck? Where's this song then? Man.